All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me today. I have on with me today Prophet of Zod, or as I like to call him, the great prophet of the atheist community. Yeah. So, thank you for joining me today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yep, no problem. Um, First off, tell me a little bit about yourself and who you are and kind of what you do.
Well, I am, as far as everyone knows, a YouTuber who makes videos about religion mostly. And so a variety of things from just talking about topics that cross my mind to uh, cartoon satires and things like that. So a lot of different variety, but basically just sharing whatever I think is important in the discussion about atheism and religion. Um, Beyond that, in my personal life, I guess people don't know much, and I don't talk a ton about that, except a little bit of my history where I used to be a Christian, was highly involved in church and Christian school environments until I finally came to my senses.
Okay, yeah, that actually goes into the next question. Actually, is were you religious before you became an atheist? And if so, what denomination slash religion were you?
Yeah, I was highly religious growing up, and I started in an independent Pentecostal environment, and um, it's hard to describe exactly what it is, but it's a family of churches that started in Alaska and they've spread across the United States and into a few other countries. So
Okay,
that's where I started, and I eventually wandered through a few things from Assemblies of God to Baptist and stuff like that as I got older.
okay. What led you to becoming an atheist?
I think it was just a long journey for me. I was always a little more literal than other people around me, and that led to several things from even my youngest years, including having a hard time feeling like I was praying or connecting to God, or just really truly feeling that I was taking things on faith as much as I tried. And I bought into it all through high school, and as I started going to college, I identified as a Christian, but things I learned just made it harder and harder to keep acknowledging that had serious doubts. And if there was a final nail in the coffin, somewhat ironically, even though this is the case for a lot of people, a big thing was listening to apologists and creationists. I learned more about what's wrong with my faith hearing them talk than actually listening to anybody on the other side.
Yeah, that's actually I never, even as a Christian, never really listened to the apologists that much. Uh, Hold on, let's see. We got. I wish I knew how to do this.
I'm not sure if I can do anything on my end. I've moved closer to my microphone.
Yeah, try that.
Do I sound any better now?
Uh, Beej, is that better? Yeah, that's
Do I sound any louder to you anyway?
a little. So that
Okay.
might work. Hopefully that's good.
I could
Um,
try to do some old fashioned speaking up.
yeah. Uh, yeah. Uh, he
She said,
was
need to talk or
for you to
need to
know.
know.
Okay, Keon says it's better. So hopefully that's good. Um,
If we come to a real issue, I can get it. I have another microphone I can grab and use
okay.
instead. Just let me know
Yeah.
if it's a problem.
The joys of live streams, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say just with me is I never actually heard any creationist apologetics. I have never heard of young Earth creationism until actually I was in high school. That was the first time I heard it, and I really kind of think it might have been a little bit more that kind of helped me question my religion a bit too, because it was done with the no true Scotsman fallacy before I knew what that was. It was like, oh, you can't be a Christian and believe in an old Earth, and I'm like, old Earth, young Earth, what the heck are you talking about? And then they told me, and I'm like, because I never believed in a young Earth or anything like that, it never made sense with what we knew. And I'm like, so I'm not a Christian. All right, nice to know. And I think that put even more seeds of doubt in me. But yeah, that's a story for another day. But my next question is, do you feel there is any benefit to religion that only it can provide that can't be achieved through any other sort of like secular means?
Oh, absolutely not. I can't think of anything. Whatever it does that's good is just duplicating what we already consider good to begin with and what we can do skipping religion. But
Okay.
if I were to say there were one exception to that, it helps people um, structure their lives morally if they've been taught to depend on religion.
Okay.
So basically, yeah, if they grew up thinking religion was the way to be moral and that's the only structure they understand, then it's basically made them dependent on it to some extent.
Yeah. Okay. Um Now, I do the next one's kind of deal more with your channel, and other than that, because that was the getting to know you part of the interview.
Sure.
The next ones is, where did the static mask idea come from? Like, where did that like why do you do that?
Originally, I was just looking to hide my face because I wasn't sure how much of my identity I wanted out.
Yeah.
And so I started with a hood and I was kind of halfway showing parts of my face. And honestly, I like to record instead of trying to talk live on air so I can edit my audio a little better and get over my stuttering and things like that. So basically, for a variety of reasons, I just found that an interesting way to obscure my face. It just occurred to me once and I decided to do it.
Okay. I wasn't sure there was like some really cool. I was looking for a really cool, like, oh, it was because of this. Yeah. So looking for something
No,
like that.
there's no fun story to it. I was just
Yeah.
thinking of a way to obscure my face, and that sounded kind of fun and unique.
Well, I can't think of anyone else who does it like that. So I think that is unique to you. Um,
It sticks out and has a little bit of character and recognizability
yeah,
to it. So,
yeah. Um, if you were not doing YouTube right now, like if you didn't start your channel or anything, what do you see yourself doing right now?
so right this moment,
Like
if I
the
wasn't
YouTube
using this to
channel or
fill my
anything?
spare time,
Yeah.
um, I'd probably be out running around outside right now. I
Okay.
live in Alaska, and I'm in a really beautiful river valley, and so there's all kinds of paths and stuff I go take my dog and run around on.
Yeah. Ugh, Alaska. Too cold. You're crazy. If it gets below 65, I'm cold.
Yeah, I went down to Faithless Forum in Dallas, and it was colder there than it was in Alaska at that time.
That's insane. Gotta love Mother Nature, right? Can't make up its
Yeah.
mind. Um, but what the next question is, what made you want to start making videos? Like, what inspired you to do that?
Well, YouTube was my first exposure to atheism, and it came about through my brother who got me watching some material on YouTube, and then he also had a channel, and so he slowly worked me into it. I started writing a few things for his channel, and then when he realized that he was holding me up because he was slowly becoming inactive, he kind of set me up with a few things to get me going.
Okay. Um, what made you like want to start doing animations for your channel?
Um, I'm always, as you can tell, I think one of the weaknesses of my channel is I go in way too many directions, or I have historically, and I'm trying to stop doing that so much. Uh, but every time I had an idea enter my head, a critique of religion or some other topic I wanted to discuss, I was always thinking of different ways to approach it. And animation was kind of natural for some things. You can pack a lot of critiques into an animation in just a really quick succession that you can't do just sitting there making a speech. And so that's kind of the approach of my latest one, which is is Bible stories where God and Jesus talk and everything. Is through a little bit of dialogue, you can cover a lot of things and make it more engaging than you can just sitting there talking about it.
Yeah. Um, if you could animate any story the from the Bible that you haven't done, I think you've only really done the Genesis account. Um, what would it be and why?
That's tricky. I actually have a lot of different ideas in mind. I'm working on Cain and Abel right now, and I have a lot of ideas for Jesus, including his interactions with the Pharisees and a few other things like that. Um, One that I haven't touched on that I want to get to is the Balaam's ass story, where I talked about this with Godless Iowan recently, but it's basically a whole story about how God tells someone to do something and then gets mad at him and uses the whole incident to torture an animal.
Oh yeah, I think I remember that one.
Yeah.
Um, oh, Beast
Getting a
says,
message saying that someone hopes I do the Job story,
yeah,
which
Beach.
I think could be interesting, but I'd have to think of a way to make it unique because it has been done a few times.
Yeah, I was thinking that would be fun to watch. Yeah,
Yeah.
God screws Job over just to test his faith, even though he's all knowing and knows everything. So he shouldn't need to test his faith because he knows what he'll say and do, but he doesn't know what he's going to say and do. So he has to have the devil test him because, yeah, it's a whole can of worms that just makes no sense. Um,
Yeah, and and the whole thing was to appease the devil to begin with.
yeah,
I'll probably try to do it. I have a good devil character, and there's not many places for him to come in. And
yeah,
if I could just think of a unique way to do it, I think it'd be a good story.
yeah. But your devil needs a better voice. No, I'm kidding. Your devil is really good. I just, well, I don't know. You think this works? Yeah, that's that voice is. Yeah, that's my devil voice. But
I just stumbled upon that guy on a very
yeah,
small channel,
yeah,
and he ended up doing. And I got more requests from people to want to play the devil than any other character, which is I guess is pretty normal.
yeah. I mean, come
Everyone
on.
wants to be the bad guy.
Yeah, I mean, what's not to love about being the bad guy? You get to do all the fun crap that you can't do in real life.
Yeah.
There, I mean, that's the best way to do it.
One of the things that's counterintuitive that I wanted with the devil is that guy is very level and calm. And I think most people would want to ham the devil up a bit, but I
Yeah,
kind of try to use him as a straight man to God and Jesus. And
yeah.
so it's a
That,
different approach than I think people are
yeah,
used to.
that's definitely. I'll grant that is definitely a a unique approach, and that's rather that's rather interesting, and but it works well with how you do it. So it's really funny when you watch like the devil's supposed to be the incompetent one, and then you watch it as really you actually see how incompetent God is, and
Yeah.
that never gets old.
Yeah. I really wanted to use him to just kind of calmly critique him
Yeah,
because there's always a voice of reason. The Holy Spirit is my really intelligent one. Uh, Jesus, I tried to write. I think it's kind of unique in these kinds of videos. Have a kind of a slacker, smartass voice of reason, which I have fun using Jesus that way. And so the
yeah.
devil, I think it's important to have him be a little more laid back.
I do have to disagree with the Holy Spirit being the intelligent one. I mean, who you have doing the voice, I have to question that one. Oh, you mean the parts that you translate to? Okay, okay, no, that part is intelligent. All right, my bad.
Yeah, I try to make him as far as the lines he says. I try to make him more of my egg-headed,
Yeah,
critique of everybody.
yeah. I just sorry, that was a cheap shot at Tilton. I shouldn't have made it.
Oh, yes, you should have.
Yeah, true.
Um, if I can interrupt
Yeah.
real quick, did get a question that's scrolling up the screen. I
Oh,
am from a small town outside Anchorage called Eagle River. So basically, we're just a suburb of Anchorage,
okay.
just to get that out there. So
Oh no,
that
you're
question
fine.
could answer.
You're fine. Oh, yeah. The next question, but before, how come you picked the Canadians to do Adam and Eve, though? I mean, come on. I mean, you should have gotten a real person, an American. You got so American. Eh? Ain't that right? Eh? Or
Well,
do I have to
it's
be?
getting harder and harder to find YouTubers who are not Canadian.
Yeah. The Canadians are taking over YouTube. Run for the hills.
But what happened is I'm actually overflowing with voices, which is very unusual situation for me to be in. But when the whole thing started, I was uh, I was just the first person who got this whole thing kicked off was Tony Reed, who's playing God. He just sent me a random message saying, "Hey, if you were looking for a God, I would love to do that on your channel." And so that got me in the mindset to really get the animation kicked back up. And um, Frankie had done something else for me, and I knew he'd be a really funny Jesus. And I didn't have any female voices at that time. And so Shannon just happened to show up on a channel where I had a preview of it saying that she would do Eve or whoever else. And so then she got Paul to come in and do it too. And that's how they got into it. They both ended up being really funny though.
Oh yeah, that was. I mean, I'm sorry. Just Paul saying "wee wee" is just that's. I'm sorry that that will crack me up every time. It's just like, man, can you be any more mature about that?
That guy had
But
an amazing level of tolerance for saying just very indistinguished things I had written into Adam's voice. I
yeah,
was surprised that he was willing to do all that for me.
yeah. But then again, in Adam's defense, he was only like what, a day or maybe a week at most old. So I mean, he wasn't exactly mature yet.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, but the next question is, if you were to become religious, what religion or denomination would you be?
Oh boy. That's kind of like, are you looking to have this be monetizable?
I'm not able to monetize. I don't have 1,000 subscribers or
Okay.
4,000 watch hours, so have fun.
All right. Well, that's kind of like asking what kind of shit you want to eat. Like it's really hard to answer. Strangely enough, I am going to start attending a church probably next week. But it's going to be a Unitarian church. So
Uh,
if that counts as a religion, then that's what I would pick.
yeah, okay. Um, all right, yeah, and and as far as swearing, that's fine. I'm okay with swearing. Shit, fuck, fuckity, fuck, fuck, shit. There we go. Now you can't get worse than that, can you?
Oh, I bet I could.
All right, that sounds like a challenge. Um, but the next one is, what is your favorite video you have made and why?
Boy, that's a tough one. One that most people might not be as familiar with now that I kind of have a soft spot for is the first animated one, well, somewhat animated one I did. It was the I'm glad I decided to become an atheist,
Yeah, that
and it has horrible looking drawings. But that one, I posted that. It was kind of a side thing when I was doing another project, and that one just took off in likes and views in a way that none of my other videos had. And I was kind of puzzled about why, but uh, yeah, I've always liked that one for that reason.
yeah. I actually just watched that one the other day, and it's like, okay, the animation's not the best, but the points and arguments you made are really well done. So
Well,
I'm
thank
like,
you.
yeah, that was a very, because it is. It's like, oh, well, you're just an atheist, so you want to be immoral in that. It's like, no, no. I've had people. Oh, one of the worst arguments I get whenever I get into it with theists is I had someone say, well, how do you determine your value? And they always get mad when I ask this question. I say, are you talking about here on Earth with us as humans, or do you mean the grand scheme of the universe? The grand scheme of the universe, and I've taken flack for this even from some atheists, we don't matter. Our planet in 5 billion years will be wiped off. It won't exist anymore. The sun's going to gobble it up. And guess what? In the grand scheme of the universe, we don't matter. But on Earth, we determine our value through empathy. And that's, yeah, like I said, I take a lot of flack for whenever I go into like, well, if we're talking on the universe, I mean, we have no value in the universe. We're an insignificant rock in an insignificant solar system, and there's billions of other planets like ours.
But that doesn't. I Yeah, that's one of my biggest pet peeves as well because it's a very easy thing to answer.
Yep.
Well, there's a good answer for it, and it's one I've done 1,000 times. But it's hard to hit the brakes and stop and explain that to somebody.
Yeah.
And so it's really frustrating. And they're not going to want to hear what you say in my experience either.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just absolutely
Because
despise that question.
yeah, and they're like, well, so you're just saying you determine value. Well, yeah, we humans determine value through empathy. That's kind of been that's how we survived. And it was with one of the people who I had quite a bit of issues with. And they're like, and I'm like, yeah, through evolution as a social species, we've learned empathy and developed that. That's how we've evolved to survive. We understand as social creatures. Yeah, killing everyone off is not a good thing,
Right.
at least in our tribe. And they're like, well, you're talking as evolution as a fact. Yeah, I was talking to a yak, and I'm like, it is a fact. I wanted to ask them if they were an ape, and if they said no, I'm going to say, so you aren't human. Homo sapien is you're an ape. But yeah, the next question is, sorry for kind of going on that little
No
tangent bit
problem.
there.
You know, if you don't mind me saying something further
Yeah,
about it,
sure.
I don't even think that question requires you to go as far as evolution or anything sophisticated or scientific or anything. To me, it's as simple as if you look in the universe around you, if you think there's a God, you find an appropriate way to respond to it. And if you find that there's not a God, you find an appropriate way to respond to people. Like, I don't think it needs to be more complicated than that. So that's why it's a knowing
That's
question.
yeah,
Because it's
that's
just,
actually a go ahead.
oh, no, no, that's fine. It's just, I was just going to say it's an incredibly simple concept. And there's not even anything different about responding to a God on a basic level when it comes to morality that than responding to people, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and the next question is um what is your least favorite video that you have made and why?
Hmm. Least favorite. Boy, that's hard.
I figure that would be the easiest one because everybody's their own critic.
Yeah, well, I have a lot of things I'm critical of, but I don't know if I can think of a single worst video off the top of my head. I'm sure there are a handful that I just don't really care that much for.
Okay, which one do you think is one um that you think if you could look back and go, okay, I would like to change the most on that one? I guess be like if you could just go back and just reshoot one video because you just want to make it better because it's not your best work. Is that an easier option?
Yeah, that's an easy way to put it. Um, I think I would redo. There are several of them that are like that. So if you don't mind
Oh, that's fine.
multiple answers.
That's fine.
I do some of my earlier ones, like my "Why I Became an Atheist" one. My very earliest, where I'm like in front of a brick wall and have like a Carhartt hoodie on, uh, and my vocals are all terrible, like everybody's is the first time they do something.
Yeah.
I'm actually thinking of redoing the "Why I'm Glad I Became an Atheist" one, just to make the animation look a little better.
Okay.
And let's see, I have a series called "This Is God," "This Is Lucifer," things like that. I might redo a couple of those using actual animated characters.
Okay.
And then maybe my William Lane Craig ones.
Oh God. Oh, he is a headache.
He is.
Oh, I admire anyone who tries to take him on because he has an expert ability to say so much without saying anything at all.
Yeah.
And it's you have to sit there and decipher through what's the bullshit and what's his actual point. It's
Exactly. He's a headache to listen to and he's really irritating, but I kind of enjoy it because I'm a former English teacher and I kind of like playing with words and stuff. So I have this kind of weird interest in puzzling out what he's saying and working through that and coming up with a message, but it's a lot of work.
oh yeah. Wait, so you're a former English teacher, so I shouldn't be using me gooder English, ain't it grand?
No, that's fine.
Oh man, usually that will get English teachers to cringe. Um, but yeah, my next question is, what in your opinion is the best argument for God and why?
Best argument for God. I think the best one would be essentially you can't disprove him, or we all need to come up with an explanation for why we're here and stuff. And so my explanation for there being a God, while I can't prove it, is as good as your explanation that there is no God. So essentially, that there's a baseline assumption that we can't prove one way or the other.
Okay.
I think it's
Uh,
a crappy argument, but I
yeah,
think it's less crappy than the rest of them. Is the best that can be said
yeah.
for it.
I guess that would have been one way. What is the least crappiest? Or yeah, that works. Um, secular. I thought that happened a while ago. He said he's waiting on someone to disprove Odin. Um, but the
Well, you
next
can
question. Oh,
Yeah, you can maybe disprove one version of him, but then when people reinvent him, like they have Jehovah, then it gets
yeah,
harder.
yeah, true. Um, yeah, the next one is, what is the worst argument for God and why, in your opinion?
Boy, there's a lot to pick from for this. Worst
Yeah.
argument for God. If evolution says we came from monkeys, then why are there still monkeys?
Okay, I will. I will. Yeah, actually, you know that one's bad. It's when AIG calls it bad. Then you know it's bad. When
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
AIG goes, yeah, don't even use that anymore. You make us look like, you make us look bad. Um. So yeah. In chat, since we're running kind of towards the end of the questions here, if you have any questions for, Prophet of Zod here, please put them in, and I'll get to them because you got two more questions on my list. So if you have any, ask away. Um. But the next one is, do you, and this is literally because of your most recent video you did, is why I'm asking this, is, do you feel we could ever have objective morality? And if so, how?
I disagree with the phrasing of that question. Um,
Okay.
as I disagree with the phrasing of any question that includes the word objective morality or the idea that we can make morality objective or that different systems are and aren't.
Okay.
Um,
It,
and
it,
I explained this in a video where I basically explained why rocket science can't be objective. Like it has objective facts, but then it goes for a subjective goal.
yeah. Yeah. And that's why I tried to word it the way I did. Is, do you feel we could ever have it? So, not saying is there or isn't there. It's, do you think there could ever be an objective morality? Sorry if I
Yeah,
didn't
so
make
I
that
guess
clear.
no, that's fine. Yeah, I guess I would say then the answer is no, not because morality is subjective, but just because the idea of objective morality doesn't even really make sense, in my opinion.
Okay. All right. Yeah. That's that.
There,
Yeah.
there are different things it can mean, and if we boil that down more clearly, then we could talk about that. But the way I usually like to phrase it is, I don't think morality can be totally objective or subjective, but I tell people if human to human morality, or if morality between a human and God is objective, it's no more or less objective than morality between two humans.
Okay. That makes sense. And my last and final question, and then we can look to the chat, see if anyone has any other questions for you. Is, what advice do you have for people who are just starting out on YouTube or who want to start out on YouTube? Like, what is the best advice that you can give them from your experience for right now?
There are a couple things, if you don't mind me making a couple
Oh,
points about it.
yeah, sure. Go ahead.
First would be the simplest one is make sure to find a way to get decent audio. So get some kind of actual decent mic, some way to make a clean audio recording and find a quiet place to record your voice. I would say play to your own strengths. I'm not particularly good at putting my face on camera and talking uninterrupted for a period of time, which is one reason I static my face. So I try to work my way around that. I would not be I couldn't like go do the lecture circuit or anything like that and be a really engaging person. And so you have to recognize your own weaknesses and work around those. Um, and then be persistent is a big part of it. You have to recognize that you're not so good that you're going to get discovered and explode all of a sudden. It's going to be a slow, very steady climb. And you need to be ready to enjoy every video that you put out. You have to really like the product you're making and enjoy making the video and putting it out for its own sake, even for a very small audience, because that's almost certainly what you're going to be doing for a long time. And so just be ready to do something small scale that you enjoy. And if you want to grow your channel, just keep clawing away at it and always trying to improve.
Okay. That that's really good advice. Yeah, it took me a while to find my niche kind of doing atheist stuff. That was when I first started, that was not something I ever thought I would be doing. Because I tried, if you look at my channel, it's I tried a little here, then I tried a little there and a little bit there. And yeah, and then it started with the debate that I had that someone had challenged me to on the morality of God. And then from there, it's since I do drafting, I did a video um about intelligent design and why it doesn't work. And so it's just from there, it just kind of grew. And then I started like, well, okay, since I don't have time to write scripts and that because I'm in school, what I can do interviews. So I started trying to get more people on for interviews and then kind of do other videos and be more regular with my videos. So, um, yeah. Again, uh, what was I watching during the time the atheist community imploded? I enjoy all well, I enjoy all the newcomers on the scene. So I'm not sure what they were.
So
Um.
what was I watching YouTube when the community kind of fell apart?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry, I misread that. Sorry. Yeah. Were you?
Yeah, I was. I think that was about the time that I was first starting to watch atheist videos, and I really ate it up at first. I mean, I was watching Non-Stamp Collector, Logic, a lot of these people. Um, oh, what's that other guy? Anyway, I was watching a lot of these people, including the Amazing Atheist, who I'm not a huge fan of right now, but a
Yeah.
lot of these people were the ones that I learned from at first. And yeah, I saw that slowly go downhill as people started fighting with each other, making response videos to each other instead of actual interesting content. And it just became a bunch of, I think there was a combination of fighting and then people just getting tired of talking about atheism because I guess there is a point where you start to feel like you want to talk about something else. And so it became about all these divisive political issues. So yeah, that was unfortunate, I thought.
And the next one we have is from Christmer. I mean Christmer. Sorry, I had a little GE moment there. um, it is when looking at the context of the Greco-Roman myths and cross-referencing with the Bible. How much do you think the Christians plagiarize? Yeah, there we go. From the Greco-Roman mythos.
That's hard to say. I'm very familiar with Greek mythology because I used to teach it a lot in high school, and I think you can see a lot of parallels. But it's hard to tell how much they actually plagiarized versus how much all those ideas were just swimming through everybody's consciousness at that time, and it just kind of naturally wound up helping shape Christianity. A lot of people talk about all these parallels between Jesus and all these other similar mythical characters, and some of those are more accurate than others. I'm not a huge expert on that, but I think there certainly is a lot of similarities in some of the stories and the mentality. I could see some similarities between Prometheus and Jesus as far as kind of a crucifixion posture and how he, um, in a way, sacrificed himself for humanity or was, you know, tortured for humanity's sake. But it's hard to tell how much that's actually plagiarism, and how much is just a lot of common themes running throughout the stories.
Yeah, Christmer just um, brought up, and I was going to bring that one up too. But Dionysus, one of the big ones on that is, I think it's in Luke, but the wedding with the wine. I mean, you have a small wedding party. You need 50 barrels of wine. That was a straight up point of, oh well, oh, your God can make wine come out of the ground. Well, guess what? My God can turn water into wine at will. And it was more of a my God's bigger than your God, or my dad can beat up your dad type, no better way to point it, but it was a dick measuring contest between the religions. That's all it was.
Oh yeah,
Um
certainly.
yeah, and so there's a lot in there, I think, and that's one of the really interesting points on that. But secular asks, what about the parallels between Norse mythology and Christianity? I am not familiar with many, so maybe you know something on it.
I really am very unfamiliar with Norse mythology, to be honest.
Okay,
Uh,
so yeah.
I probably learned about as much of it from Marvel comic movies than I have from actually reading the stories, which is kind of shameful, but that's is what it is.
Oh, you want to know all the Norse stuff I understand and know? Where in time is Carmen San Diego? The Leif Erikson bit. There you go. I'm not a big Marvel fan, so I didn't even get that bit. So yeah. Um, so yeah, that's one on that. Any other questions, chat? We'll see if any more show up. If not, that might, that might do it. Maybe.
Sure. What about Mayan? I honestly have a very narrow focus of mythology that I'm familiar with. I wasn't strongly encouraged, having grown up in a Christian environment, to read or learn about other mythologies.
Yeah.
And so it depends on what my focus was in college. And then I learned a lot ground up as I was teaching about classical mythology.
Yeah. Not like Christmas says he has one. Uh, have you heard of the Shinto version of Jesus?
I have not.
That sounds interesting. I'll have to try and look into that one. That's I had not heard of it until now. So that's
This gets down to one of my limitations as a YouTuber, which is that I don't really know. I don't have a lot of outside knowledge. Like, I'm not a scientist. I'm not really well read with a lot of other mythologies. I have a kind of a general Western literary background, but my big thing is I know the Bible well, and I think I have some kind of knack for breaking down arguments and stuff. So
yeah.
if you look at my channel, almost everything is internal to fundamental Christianity. I don't bring a lot of outside information in.
I'm I'm the same way with you. Um I mean I like to focus on theological claims. That's one of my big ones. And with that, it's very much uh because before I became an atheist, and it was actually me studying the Bible to go to seminary. And so from there, I learned a lot about, like, I was just more or less just doing like Bible studies, reading through it, finding out about it. And I had friends challenge me, read it from beginning to end, cover to cover. Don't
Mhm.
skip around. And I did, and I'm like, oh crap. I can't follow this God. Even if he's real, I cannot in good conscience follow and worship him. And from there, I clung to agnostic for a long time, even though I didn't believe. And then finally, it's just one day I just finally realized, I was like, you know what? I don't believe in a God. I guess I
Yeah.
am an atheist. So when people say, "Oh, you don't just wake up one morning and become an atheist," well, that did happen to me, or at least I woke up one morning and accepted the label finally of atheist, because growing up in a very fundamentalist town, um, in a very almost fundamentalist household, I, very much was, you know, I mean, to me, it was like, oh, this is all right. And it's my whole world came crashing down around me.
Yeah, you're really building a house of cards, because when you're a believer, if you think at all, you're not stupid. Most believers aren't
No,
stupid.
no,
They they know a lot of the logical problems behind their own religion, and they're really good at applying it to other issues. Like, I used to be an armchair skeptic as a Christian, and I loved to break down psychics and
oh, yeah.
spoon benders and all this stuff. But I had a mental block toward applying it to my own religion. And so when you're intelligent enough to understand the problem, but you're also intelligent enough to make excuses for your own religion, you're building up this whole thing in your mind that's just waiting to crash. And for me, anyway, at some point in my mind, I think I was more or less an atheist, even though I told myself I was a Christian and fought to convince myself I was a Christian.
Yeah.
There was enough unbelief in there that really, like you said, you wake up and you're just ready to acknowledge it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I mean, I'll agree with you there. My former pastor, who I'm still really, really good friends with, we just obviously do not agree on religion or anything along those lines, obviously. Um, but he is, I mean, arguably, he's one of the smartest people I know. I mean, let's put it this way: there's a reason, if you're playing Trivial Pursuit, just don't even bother if he's playing. He will. Uh, because if you get the question right, you go again. And he's literally had his turn for over 20 minutes before till he finally got something wrong. And
Oh
we all
wow.
joke that, oh, he just got it wrong on purpose to, to give everyone else a chance, no matter how. So yeah, I mean, this guy is super, super smart. So I will agree with you. It's just, and it's true. It's you look at it as because even back when I was a believer and wanting to be a pastor, I look back at it, I'm like, oh God, I mean, I was that. I would criticize everyone else, but the moment you brought anything like that to the Bible and my religion, I was like, I don't want to talk to you about it. It's you block it out. You don't want to acknowledge it because your whole identity almost is based on that one belief system.
Right.
Because you have to agree with X, Y, and Z because the Bible says X, Y, and Z. You really shackle yourself mentally as a when you're religious, really of any religion, because
Yeah,
it does hurt you because you aren't allowed to think beyond what the dogma says you can think.
exactly. I think we're all shackled to some things like that. Like I think we all internally justify things that probably aren't super intelligent, but there's nowhere in my experience anywhere where it's been so blatant and so damaging as with religion.
The only place I can come up with is the other portion of that half that you are never supposed to talk about, politics. And I'll leave it
Right.
at
Yeah.
that. I don't get into politics on my channel for a reason.
Oh, I don't
Um,
either.
I know, I even know back when I was a Christian, and I've had people criticize me on this back when I was a Christian of some of my beliefs because I was I had people accuse me of actually being a heretic, even from my own church because of what some of my beliefs were. I was never, and if you know anything on Southern Baptists, you will understand why I was almost classified as a heretic. I was never a fire and brimstone eternal torture with hell. I believe I was an annihilationist, which
Oh
is,
wow.
oh, your soul just ceases to exist. It's eternal separation from God. You just no longer exist. And if you know anything on Southern Baptists, that's that's outright heresy almost.
Oh yeah, they're horny for the idea of God torturing people. That's for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's even when it's not that, because even when it's not highly, prominent in their sermons, they still hold that. If you ask them, do you believe hell is a actual physical place where you will be tortured for eternity? They will say yes. And I was never one who could believe an all-loving God would do that.
Right.
And so that's why and that was one of the things that I struggled with for the longest time. Then I heard someone who was in annihilation, and I'm like, that actually makes the most sense. And that's where I went from there to, you know, and it's just, I had some other ones. Like I never believed the fruit was literal. That
Oh
never
wow.
made sense to me. Like I said, I was a freaking heretic back when I
Yeah,
was,
yeah.
even when I was a believer.
You were way off the rails for a fundamentalist if you were a
Yeah,
fundamentalist.
I was brought up in a fundamentalist household. My church I went to was a fundamentalist church, but it's just I never was a fundamentalist. Um like I said, I mean it's just things never made sense. Um and that's one reason why I hated Lutheran, because I was technically raised Lutheran, even though I went to a Southern Baptist church more than I went to the Lutheran church. And I never believed in the transformation. I mean, my mom hated whenever I was a Christian. I went to church with her and there was communion offered, and I never took it at the Lutheran church because I'm like, I cannot take something I do not agree with. Because to me, it
Mhm.
was always a symbolism of it. Um, and just other things like that. Yeah, I was a freaking walking heretic, and I like I probably would have been kicked out of seminary school because I would probably told the professor he was an idiot if he tried to point any of those things that I did agree with out. I was not ever really known for my tact, shall we say.
Well, in fairness, nobody's really a fundamentalist, or at least very few people are.
Yeah.
Like, no, very few of even the most fundamentalist Christians are going to say that the universe existed as in a watery state before God started creating anything, or that he made a dome for a firmament to put over the earth and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So they all find things symbolic.
Yeah. But yeah, it doesn't look like we have too many
We have a
questions.
question from Secular saying,
Oh,
asking if I believe Jesus was an actual person.
oh, okay. I missed. Oh, okay. There. Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, I really don't know and don't care that much. Um, I'm like many atheists where I find that question irrelevant, but I can see a lot of signs that Jesus, as we conceive him anyway, was obviously put together from a series of short capsule sized stories that everybody kind of pasted together in the first few decades or centuries after when at least he was claimed to have lived. Um, but from an amateur perspective, I see a few internal things in the Bible that would make me guess that that some person actually existed that these stories were attributed to.
Yeah.
One would be the fact that the whole story of the census that was required to get him into Bethlehem for his birth. I think if he
Yeah.
were just purely a mythical character, he would have just been born in Bethlehem without having to, or his whole ministry would have been in Bethlehem instead of him having to have been brought there from Nazareth and then brought back.
Yeah. I,
And the, oh, go ahead.
oh no. So I was just gonna say, yeah, the Bethlehem one, the census. I I I don't think I'm kind of with you there that I think that there's someone who it was based on. Is there's uh you know there were so many apocalyptic rabbis during the time. Oh, God's going to destroy the earth and all that crazy crap, which is too much different from now. That
Yeah.
it really, it's. I think there might have been someone like that, but I think the stories of the census came in later to try and lend credibility to something that was going on. Because if you look at the other ones of Herod, well, Herod died 10 years before the census ever happened. And so I think it was put in there to try and give credence to it and not knowing that the other one I mentioned, Herod, and just other things like that. But yeah, sorry.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, I'd also say that probably I think that he could be have been a person or probably a reference to several of these different apocalyptic preachers. But there are little things, including I don't know. I think the fact that he was crucified in the story after having claimed to have been a messiah, and then they had to reinvent. I could see there having been a situation where people expected him to be an actual physical messiah to restore glory to Jerusalem, and then as soon as he was crucified, they had to re-explain that. So there are some dynamics, but I really don't think it's substantial. I mean, I don't think it's important to whether or not we are atheists or whatever.
Yeah. And Chris Marax asked, in your church that you went to, did they believe in the Trinity, as in God, Holy Ghost, and Jesus were one being, or do you believe that they were or did they believe that they were three separate entities?
Yes, we believed in what I think is the traditional Trinity doctrine, which is that they were three in one, three beings, one God, or something like that. Um, so yeah, I was taught that. I was I ran into some trouble with this because I presented it as an internally or inherently absurd doctrine where Christians try to explain why God is one person, but then also three people at the same time, and went through some of the metaphors and stuff they use to try to justify that or
Oh
analogies.
yeah.
And a lot of actual atheists got on me pretty hard saying, hey, you're strawmanning. People don't believe this and stuff like that. And that's one really big thing. That's one thing I would encourage people when you're interacting with content creators. Um, Sometimes they're addressing a form of Christianity that they grew up understanding.
Yeah.
And so it might not be what you're used to, but they're not really trying to strawman or make fun or anything. Well, probably make fun, but
Yeah.
um,
I'm known for that.
that is often the form of Christianity as they came to understand it. So we all have our own different ideas of what Christianity is and isn't based on our life experiences.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's true. Keon asked, what do you think about the actual end times prophecy movement?
Um, I think it is stupid. I think there's always been an end times prophecy movement. Everybody thinks that the end times is right around the corner. I did a response with Surus about this. This was the first time I had done a collaboration with him. And I mentioned I would really be interested to hear a prophecy expert say that, yeah, nothing's going to be happening for the next 100 or 2 years, but, just wait a few generations down the road, something cool will happen. Like they always think everything is, everything awesome is just about to happen within our generation. And I think it's been that way for hundreds of years.
Yeah. Well,
But
oh, go ahead.
yeah, I would just say on a personal level, I really despise this movement because having been in an independent Pentecostal church, I was very heavily exposed to it. Our church went on a big end times kick, and we were taught all kinds of things, including we had the doctrine that the whole one will be taken and one will be left and stuff, that there was going to be a 3.5 year tribulation period in which all the Christians who were really serious about being a Christian and really pressed in, as they like to say, to their faith, they would be taken away. They would slowly be perfected by God as they drew closer to him, and the rest of the people would be left to decide whether they would accept the mark of the beast and go to hell or have their head chopped off. And we were taught very literally this is going to be happening soon. And so as a child, you take that on as a very real thing to worry about. And I think that's really horrible. A child should not have to worry about something like that. But we would have our Wednesday night services be centered along all these charts and graphs talking about it, and they'd go into very vivid detail about how pretty soon we were going to have to make this choice if we wanted to go to heaven. So yeah, I
Yeah.
really don't like that movement.
Yeah, but I actually, bearing on what happens, and I believe it's 2027, late or mid-December, I think, will determine on if the end of the world or a very significant event could happen in 2036. And that's a giant asteroid is heading for us. And if it hits just this certain point in Earth's orbit, if it comes through and hits it's like a 2.7% chance of it hitting this point, and it hits there, it will have the Earth's gravitational pull will have enough effect on it that will pull it just enough off course that when it makes a second loop around with how the Earth's orbit is and what we know of it, it's going to be hitting the Earth.
Oh, that
And
would suck.
yeah. So yeah, let's just hope that it misses, as it's referred to as I've heard Neil deGrasse Tyson call it. Let's hope it misses the keyhole, because it's just this little tiny area that if it hits this point at it, granted it's a 2.7% chance of it hitting it, but if it hits that little tiny hole that it needs to go through, let's just hope it misses it. That's all I can say. Secular, I believe it, or no, Chrismer, sorry, asks, what do you think of the Prosperity Bible, like people like Kenneth Copeland and Creflo Dollar?
If you don't mind me interrupting to move to a different question,
Oh,
we've
sure.
had Beach Price asked twice now.
Oh,
For me to clarify, so I just don't want to keep missing this question.
oh,
Clarify what kind of Unitarian or Unitarian/Universalist church I will be going to. I don't know the details of it yet, but essentially I think it's just a more or less secular church. They include people of all religions as well as atheists and agnostics. So essentially, it's just a gathering place for people who believe basically anything. And there's a lot of slightly left-leaning activism, which suits me okay. So essentially, what we're looking for is something of the community and the ritual of church and a place to go on Sundays that doesn't actually involve fundamentalist religion.
yeah.
So we're just going to go feel it out and see if it's a good fit for us. And I don't want to necessarily train my children to automatically be what I am. So I think the best thing is just let them be exposed to different types of people and find a little sense of community.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's a long answer, but I don't know
Yeah,
exactly which title
yeah,
applies
that
to it.
makes sense. But yeah, what do you think about the Prosperity Gospel? And sorry, Beach, for I did not see that. And Steve and I'll get with you later and talk to you about that, because from what I understood from what I had read, is if it hits that keyhole, it will swing back around and hit us. But you are right; it's not big enough to wipe us out. I mean, it's projected to hit off of the coast of California, and basically you're going to get a giant couple tidal waves from what I've been able to find on it. But if you do have something else on that, Steven, please let me know. I would be very interested in reading on that. But yeah, sorry, back to the question. What do you think of the prosperity gospel?
Well, I don't think it's cool. It's
Yeah,
hard to know what to say about it. It's so obvious what it is. Everybody gleans what they want out of religion, and prosperity gospel is just appealing to people's desire to have good things happen to them. So it's just kind of a
yeah, yeah. I'll agree with you on that. It's basically a giant. It's the oldest con in the book.
yeah,
I don't know how. Even back then, I was like, no, religion is not that. You're conning people. I even back then, I think knew religion was a con. I just never wanted to admit to myself I was a mark. Because, I mean, who
yeah,
wants to admit that they were ever conned? I mean, that's not something you're ever proud of. So I think that's where a lot of it is just that, it's been so ingrained in you also from an early age that you kind of got to go with it. I mean, that's always been one of the most interesting facts that I've ever read about religion. If Christianity or Islam, Hindus, Buddhism, whatever, if they're supposed to be the true religion, the one religion that you're supposed to be, why the hell is it geographically based?
yeah.
Why is it if I go take someone from, let's say, Saudi Arabia, I will guarantee you 9.9 times out of 10, that person is going to be Muslim. Okay, let's go randomly grab someone from India. Guarantee they're probably going to be Hindu. Let's go grab someone from the South, from Southern United States. Guarantee almost they're going to be Christian. I mean, it's or some form of Christian. Um, so it really, and that never made sense to me. Is well, why is it geographically based? Because if you take a map of the dominant religions and you put where they are dominant at, and you overlay it of a normal U.S., you're going to find out that that's going to overlap with countries that are predominantly that religion. It's geographically based. If there was one true religion, there should be, um, you know, there should be one religion generating the most.
Yeah, I
Just
would
it
think
never makes sense to
if
me.
there was one religion and it was the God that Christians claimed and he could communicate and was omnipotent,
Yeah,
basically I think you would have pretty much everybody following that religion. You would have a few just absolute idiots who thought they'd be happier sinning than going to hell, and maybe just these
yeah,
yeah, a couple absolute crazy people who invented their own thing. But yeah, absolutely.
yeah. It's. I mean, I guess for me, if there's a God, I don't believe there is, but if there is, it's gonna be maybe each religion got maybe something right, but they aren't all right because it's just too many things just don't add up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that God doesn't really care if people got it right,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah, it does. I mean, because and I've had people go, "Well, how do you explain Christianity surviving to this day?" Okay, how do you explain how you know Google is the biggest, search engine? Why is that everybody mostly uses Google of some kind? Why is that? Well, that's because Google had a good product and they had good marketing. And there's your answer. People
It's a
wanted
really
a
self-defeating
product.
it's a really self-defeating question even in terms of religion. Like, why are there still
Yeah.
Muslims to this day? Like,
Yeah.
they just don't even think. They just
Yeah.
whip something off and
Yeah. Why are there still Hindus? That's a better one. They've been around longer than even Judaism.
yeah.
So it's so many like when you because that was one of the things that really shocked me was well, I was always told Judaism is the oldest religion. No, that would be Hinduism, and there's even ones older than Hinduism. And it's just so many things, like I said, just did not add up when I started looking. And yeah, but do we?
I would say one
I
thing
don't,
about prosperity gospel that kind of had on my
okay.
mind, which I think the idea that it's terrible is a holdover from times when we were actually religious, like we felt it contaminated religion. But I think that all forms of religion, including all forms of Christianity, appeal to something people are looking for. And so I would say that appealing to people's desire to prosper in this world might not be worse, or maybe not even as bad as appealing to people's desire for the world to come to an end and for half people to burn in hell and all these other things that people go for. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It just suddenly occurred to me that maybe that's not the worst form of Christianity.
Yeah. Which I'm not really seeing uh too many more questions. So I think that will do it for us. Thank you, Prophet of Zod, for coming on today and for this interview. I hope you had a good time.
Oh, I did, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. This is Caproni signing out.